And we're live.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. We'll now resume our regular council meeting of the Township of Cabmonaghan on this Tuesday, September 6th. There was no report coming back from closed session. So our first item is number 7, presentation. 7.1, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament, with regards to the proposed federal electoral map. So, Madam Clerk, I will await you to let him in.
Mayor McFadden, I believe, yes.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
MP Schmale has joined us. Great.
Welcome, MP Schmale. How are you?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm well, and you, Mr. Mayor?
Very good. We're all excited to hear your delegation for us today.
Excellent. Well, it's good to see everyone in this official capacity. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today, and hopefully soon we can do this in person again. What I'd like to have a quick chat about is the riding redistribution. This happens every 10 years or so after the census comes out. It kind of realigns boundaries to better reflect population growth or population loss. And so this is a quite normal process. The process itself is a little different each time because there are always new commissioners running the process. So that does change, but the event itself is something we get used to. If you'll notice on the riding boundaries, our riding is scheduled to change a little bit. Now, this is only the first draft. If you remember the last time this happened in 2015, the first and second drafts had our riding basically split in two, where Cavan Monaghan was split with the southern half of Kawartha Lakes and amalgamated with Newcastle, Orono, Cobourg, and Port Hope. And so luckily on the third draft, it kind of came back to what it is now. What the commission is now proposing is splitting Cavan Monaghan up into 3. And if you'll look at the map itself, and I'm sure you've already done so, North Monaghan goes into the Peterborough riding. Cavan stays with Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, and Millbrook South goes into Northumberland, Peterborough South. So it is quite a drastic change. The other minor changes doesn't really affect the municipality much is Highlands East. It's also split in 2 up in the northeast. Gooderham and Tory Hill stay with Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, Cardiff, and Wilberforce go to Hastings, Lennox, and Addington and Tyendinaga. I've met with the Council of Highlands East. They are going to put forward a motion and a recommendation that Highlands East be kept as 1 and go into Haliburton or stay into Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock for a whole list of reasons. And so I bring this to your attention, 1, to let you know about it, but also to get your thoughts about it. I will be making a presentation to the commission when it starts, and that written submissions are due by September 25th. The public hearings start on the 26th of September, and the next draft is expected sometime between October and December of this year. So I present this to you for your comments, questions, concerns, and I will respectfully promote and advocate for whatever council and others in the community wish to decide on a go-forward basis with this potential new map. First draft of 3. It's okay now. Things can get better. They can also get worse. Just keep that in mind.
Thank you, MP Schmale. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Thanks, MP Schmale, for joining us today and hearing us out on this. I mean, I think there's a couple different competing variables. I know that there's a population metric that is used to sort of guide some of the principles behind this. I think from my perspective anyways, there's kind of a twofold issue. The first and probably most important is that, it really is cumbersome to be divided whatsoever as a municipality between 2 different ridings, let alone 3. I can't even imagine the 3, to be honest. It just becomes so cumbersome. And the second of maybe slightly less, cumbersome or impediments is, not being affiliated with Peterborough County. I mean, being a member of the 8 municipalities, it becomes the inclusion of another representative for all the issues that we're circulating at a county level and also at the township level. But, that's not an insignificant obstruction. But I think as long as we were represented by one individual, whomever that might be, and whichever riding it would be, it certainly would alleviate some of, the duplicitous or complications with, having the county issues or the county correspondence or invitations to county issues go to 3 members of parliament instead of 2 or even 1. Like it would be tremendously complicated. And it doesn't seem like, at least in the map that I'm looking at, that many other communities across the province are being divided in 3, let alone, or 2, let alone 3. So hopefully, we can take that considerations moving forward and find a home for us to be within one entity and have one representative. And obviously my preference would be to somehow accommodate that within, the county of Peterborough and that ward. But I mean, we have Ashfield Norwood's not in that ward anyway, so it's not a completely nuanced circumstance just for our municipality. But I appreciate you coming today and hearing those comments. And that's the extent of my comments, Mayor. But thanks again, Jay.
Very good. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anything from that, MP Schmiel?
I agree with Deputy Mayor Graham. I think having 3 representatives for a municipality of the size is quite a lot. I always make the joke that the Santa Claus parade will be the first 10 minutes of purely politicians and could wear people down pretty quick. On a more serious note, it does complicate how we advocate for the township and its needs, not just locally, but also in Ottawa. So the commission itself took into account a number of factors, and they tried to keep the population to around 116. This new map brings us to about 120,000 people. So because Ontario got 1 new seat, they had to juggle a whole bunch of other boundaries. So yeah, and historical links also mean a lot. So we've been together a long time. So I think the commission and their line of thinking, I can't go into their minds, but I think by keeping a little bit of Cavan Monaghan and Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes Brock had that in their decision-making process. But I'm happy to advocate for whatever the township wants. I think the first thing I'm hoping to get your support on, and again, if it's not something that council wants to go forward with, I'm at your service. The status quo had us at the sweet spot of 116,000 people. We were right there. They really didn't have to change the boundaries at all, and we would have actually lined up perfectly with historical, with municipal boundaries, with population. Like it just checked every box. So with what I'm hoping council wants to do, and obviously Chambers of Commerce I'll have to talk to as well, to advocate for the status quo. But having said that, if council has a different idea, I'm all ears.
Very good. Thank you, MP Schmiel. Any other questions from members of council? Couple. When will it be that you're going to appear? Because I think this is a bigger issue, obviously, with us in the 3. I think we want to go away and take some of this information from today to put something together and probably come back with an actual fulsome direction of council. So my question is, when is it that you're going to appear, or can that be later? I noticed on the timelines there is virtual meetings as late as October 29th. Is it possible for you to do your appearance later, or have you already been given a date?
I haven't been given a date yet, Mr. Mayor. I'm still waiting for my slot. The one thing that we're a little upset about, I think a lot of people are upset about, that there are a lot of remote hearings, such the virtual hearings, but there are very few opportunities for in-person. Actually, Nova Scotia has more in-person meetings than we do here in Ontario, if you can believe it. So that is something I think we're trying to push for, and obviously I think a lot of people prefer the in-person meeting. So it's just a wait and see at this point until we get our kind of position.
Very good. And the in-person that you referred to, they actually have the location of where those in-person are, but the other virtual meetings, they all are relevant to certain areas of the province. For example, the one specifically to our area is on September 26th. The in-person, is anything a go at any of them, or are they more related specifically to the location of where that meeting is? Because if that's the case, I don't even see an option for an in-person specifically for us.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's my understanding from what I've been told, they do try to reserve the majority of spots for people within that community that they're in. Having said that, if I get an opening somewhere far away, I'm willing to travel to be there and advocate for what the municipalities want.
Would it be possible, I'm assured that you've got different slots, but if the township, my suggestion today would be that our township sign up for one of those slots, preferably closer to the end, to provide us more opportunity to do our due diligence. That would be the October 29th slot, which is the last virtual opportunity. Knowing that, would it be possible to have you do the same one, or you're just given a slot, you don't actually apply for it?
I can try to line up schedules with the township. I'd also like to be on the same page as the township, so I'm not going a week earlier and finding out that my wish for Cavan Monaghan is totally different than what Cavan Monaghan wants. So I'd like to be on the same page and make one report that is backed up by multiple businesses, organizations, councils, etc.
Very good, because I think we may wish to dovetail with Highlands East with regards to their request as well. I think they may find their request is somewhat more difficult to stay in light of where they've been added to is by far the lowest in Central Ontario. So I don't know how receptive they're going to be to pulling them over, as they will be to leave them where they are, which could affect your numbers. But I think you're absolutely correct, MP Smale. We need to do this in collaboration, not only with yourself, but also other municipalities, to collectively come together with a solution rather than everybody just outlaying that they don't like what they've been proposed. So any other municipalities that you're aware of that are looking at movement? I see the only other one, that's probably the only other one that's split in your riding, but I know down in Northumberland and Northumberland specifically, there's others that are split, which might affect us. Peterborough, it appears on the map there might be part of Trent Lakes that stays in the Peterborough riding, even though most of it is in your riding still based on the map. So I'm not sure.
I think the majority of Trent Lakes does come back to Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, by the looks of it.
Yeah, there's just that piece at the bottom. If you
Oh,
notice.
yeah, on the bottom left-hand corner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, do you have access, or could you forward us the actual numbers that they've used in order to come up with this? Some of them obviously we can deduce from the 2021 status or census, but for example, Cavan Monaghan, they've split us up the 115 and then Highway 7, and those three, they must have the source numbers for that. They came to their decision making. Is there a publicly accessible place where we can access those numbers, or is that?
That's a good question. I think there is. Leave that with me.
Perfect. Okay. Very good. Any other questions from members of council? I'm not looking for a answer today. I think we're all on the same page. Collectively, we need to be in one location. A municipality of 10,000, when you've got ridings of 116, I'm pretty sure we can fit somewhere. And you can hear Jamie will certainly be supportive of staying or whatever our wishes are. But I think we need to take this back to staff and do a little bit more research as far as laying it out, as well as collaborating with other municipalities that are going to be affected, that make sure we're all on the same page. And then furthermore, I think once we've got all that, I think we could bring back something to a future council meeting, have the discussion, and then MP Smale is knows exactly where this council sits, and there's no blind sides to any other municipalities that are going through the same thing, because we can do it in collaboration. Deputy Mayor Graham, I saw your hand.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, just a question for MP Smale. In your experience, it's kind of more of a tact question, Jamie, as to how we should, obviously we want to be in lockstep and on the same page. I guess my question is, should we be very prescriptive and analytical in the whichever option we propose, or as much as we appreciate your representation and always have, with no disrespect to that whatsoever, I think we understand, and I think it's reasonable to say that we just want to be whole wherever the powers that be want to put us. I mean, that's really mission number one. So is it better to be, overly analytical and say, well, if this is your number metric, why don't you put us over here because that's what that's the criteria? Or would we be, or in your opinion, do you think we might be better served to just say, listen, we're too small and to be divided in three, and respectfully, we just want that consideration for all of the impediments to effective representation and coordination with the various efforts. I'm just curious for your opinion on that, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Graham. I do agree. I would lead with your second argument first. That you're a smaller municipality. You should be as one, and you prefer that as such. And then go into your second one where you recommend us go. Right. So I remember in 2015 there was an opportunity for the commission to ask questions of the presenters. So I think the first question would be, if you're going to be whole, where do you want to be? And then if you leave, where do you think you could make up the population for? Right? Like, so if if we pull away, like Scott said, if you pull away Highlands East, then you have Hastings with like 92,000 people. Like, what, like, how are they going to make it up? They can't, right? And they're just getting bigger. And then you affect all riding. So I think the first argument, we'd like to be whole, and maybe second, have your choice. That way the commission knows where your heads are at. But then they also have the flexibility to move you, where they see fit, hopefully as whole.
Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. So a couple takeaways. First off, you're going to look into whether or not you can provide us the numbers that they've used for this, for these maps. In other words, when they've divided a municipality, what numbers are on which side of that border. And then I guess second, I don't see any reason not to have our municipality register to speak specifically at the hearing. And we don't have to provide what it is that we're speaking to, what positioner it is yet, but we do have to register by September 25th. So I'd like to provide direction to our staff to register before September 25th to specifically speak at the October 29th. That gives us maximum amount of time. Otherwise, we need to speak. The only other date for virtual is September 26th, which doesn't give us a lot of time. By the time we have to bring it back for a council meeting, for discussion, coordinate with MP Schmale as well as any other jurisdictions. So as long as council is good with that, that would be my direction, would be to register for the hearing at the Township of Cavan Monaghan on October 29th. Virtual. Council's okay with that? And MP Schmale, does that sound a reasonable approach?
That sounds great. Yes,
Okay.
I await your decision and your direction.
Very good. Excellent. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Graham, seconder, Councillor Shaw. Any further discussion on the motion? None. Okay, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden, just for clarification, before I call the vote, would you like us to include also that staff, the other part of that motion you talked about earlier, that staff do research, collaboration with other townships and report back to council? Put that all in one motion? Okay.
Yeah.
Mover and seconder, good with that?
Yes.
Perfect. Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you, MP Schmale. I just want to add, it probably will be my last meeting with you as a presenter before us. It's been an absolute pleasure over my 12 years in dealing with you. First, as the assistant for prior MP Barry DeBolin, and for the last many years, yourself. I appreciate your professionalism, everything that you've done for us. You've never left us behind. You're always so organized, right up to the most recent AMO convention where you had everything all laid out. We have genuinely appreciated the opportunity to work with you. So for that, thank you very much on behalf of all of us.
Likewise, thank you for the opportunity to work with you again. It's been a great honor.
Very good. All right, Madam Clerk, do you want anything just to receive the presentation?
Through Mayor McFadden, I can collaborate in that motion.
Very good. Excellent. All right. Thank you, MP. Our next item under delegations 8.1, John Workman regarding speed reduction on Stewart Line in Cavan.
Mayor McFadden, I'm promoting Mr. Workman. And
Afternoon.
he has joined us.
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm not going to start my video with my live stream because, as some of you may know, the internet connection out in Cavan isn't always trustworthy, even though I have 2 different forms coming into my house right now.
Mr. Workman, that would be a whole other delegation.
Yeah, that's a separate issue altogether.
Yes.
So as you can see in front of you, this has been kind of an ongoing collaboration and communication between myself and a lot of the neighbors that we have on Stewart Line in terms of the speed on our road, being that essentially at the bottom of the Swamp Hill, it starts at 80 kilometers an hour and it does not stop until you get to the end of Stewart Line, and even kind of continues around the corner. And what we're noticing is we're being confronted with some pretty dangerous scenarios. We've seen some swerving. There's been some very close calls. We know that this has been brought to council before and it was rejected. I think it was a 3-2 motion to deny the request to go from 80 to 60. So what I've prepared is a presentation, and if you don't mind, if I'm able to share my screen, I'd love to present the information that I have to council for your consideration.
Very good.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, we do not have that presentation available, and respectfully, we do not let residents share their screen.
Oh, fair enough. Can I share the link to the Google Slides presentation with you?
Perhaps, Mayor McFadden, we could ask the resident to forward the information to staff at the conclusion of the meeting, and we can incorporate it as a follow-up.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Is it possible just to go through it, Mr. Workman?
Yep, I can
Okay.
I can do that. I'm just going to minimize my screen really quick. There were some visuals to go along with it, but I suppose that's not available. I was not under the impression that I needed to submit it in advance, so I'm sorry. That's my fault. So what I've kind of gone through in the presentation that hopefully you'll be able to review and consider is I've taken screenshots of different sections of Stewart Line. I've broken down where the families are, the fact that a lot of these families have children, where the blind spots are on Stewart Line. And if you haven't been on Stewart Line, you may not know the topography of that road. It is Cavan Hills in its essence. The end of Stewart Line is essentially the top of Devil's Elbow Ski Hill, the old Devil's Elbow. So it changes topography quite a lot. It goes from kind of low-lying swamp all the way to essentially, as I said, the top of a ski hill. So as you can imagine, between one side of County Road 10 to Journol, there are major elevation changes. And what comes with that is multiple blind spots. In terms of the count that I put onto those screenshots and the images from Google Maps, there's about 7 blind spots in total. What happens, unfortunately, is as people come out of the swamp road, which, you know, there's no one really on Swamp Road. There's a couple of houses, but they're far set back. But once they engage in that speed of between 80 to 100 kilometers an hour, it doesn't stop. And unfortunately, when they come over the hill towards the wedding barn, that speed can actually increase and sustain all the way through until the end of the road. The reason why we're putting through this request is that we've got a lot of younger families now that have moved into Darling. We have younger families on Stewart Line. We've got all the blind spots. We've got a lot of activity happening on this road now. We've got many ORVs. We've got cyclists coming through. I've also provided all the stats from Strava in terms of the number of cyclists that have used our roads. I've got information and personal anecdotes from some of the neighbors about some of the dangerous conditions that they've observed personally. And so our request is simply at Winslow Quarter Line or thereabouts, if we could reduce the speed from 80 to 60 and maintain that until the end of the road. Now, I know that part of the reason why we were denied this request in the past is that absolutely speed limit signs do not stop speeding. We understand that, but it does make it illegal. And when you have a limit of 80, that means that justifiably people think they can go 90. And with the blind spots that we're seeing, we've seen cars swerving, we've seen buses having to do last minute changes because they're coming over the hill and not seeing these cars either flying up the hill or flying down the hill. We've got horses on the road, we've got lots of hiking now, we've got a very young and vibrant community that really enjoy being in the outdoors, but you need to kind of adapt to where the blind spots are now, because you don't know how fast some of these cars are coming over the hill, and they're not responding to hand gestures. They're not responding to our personal purchases of signs that we put on our roads and at the bottom of our driveways. So not a lot has changed. And we know that potentially it's not going to slow down all drivers, but if it slows down some, and it makes it illegal for them to go 80 or higher, that's essentially the end goal that we're looking for. And in my presentation, I provide a lot of information, a lot of justification. I've done a lot of research. You know, even a subtle change in road speeds can drastically change the behavior of drivers. I just don't think we're asking for a lot. I know in Councillor Huntley's response to me, he said, well, instead of just putting up speed limit signs, why don't we put a bunch of other signs up? So hidden driveways, watch for blind spots. I mean, those would be great too, but we just don't think 80 kilometers an hour is a reasonable speed for the density of the traffic, the number of people on our roads now, the number of people using it for recreational purposes. It's just too fast. It's much too fast. And
Yep.
sorry.
Carry on.
Okay, sorry about that. So I can kind of submit this presentation and provide the link for your review. I summarize it up at the end in these final points. It's not the first time this issue has been brought to council. When I talked to Wayne Hancock, he seemed to be on board to support this request. He kind of felt like 60 should be more of a blanket speed limit in our neighborhood. Another point I said is, you know, a speed reduction will not necessarily slow everyone down, but it will slow some people down. And more importantly, it will make excess speeds above 70 kilometers an hour illegal. I'm not sure what the council has to gain or lose from just maintaining status quo, but our neighborhood has a lot to lose. You know, in teaching, we use the quote, what you permit, you promote. So by not changing it, you're kind of saying that 80 plus is okay. We've all, the last 2 points, this bus route is also extremely dangerous for drivers, and any swerves would be catastrophic, especially during the winter. I think in our neighborhood alone, we had 9 snow days last year because of the topography, again, with the hills. It becomes pretty treacherous during the winter. And my final point was the road is just getting busier by the day, and we're seeing more and more ORVs as well. So, you know, that's a brief summary of what was in my presentation. I kind of hope to have the visuals of my presentation, but I wasn't sure that I needed to submit that in advance. So if you're able to review that, that would be fantastic. And I guess I'll leave it as that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Workman. Any questions from members of council? I will just give you the heads up. Your delegation will be referred to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Hancock, and your timing is perfect because his annual report is actually coming back at the next meeting, to which the details of each of these requests will be dealt with. But if there is any questions at this point from members of council, by all means, raise your hand and Mr. Workman's here to answer. Deputy Mayor Graham.
No questions. Thanks very much for look forward to reviewing the presentation, and apologies for that confusion, but trust we will be looking into it and reviewing that before the next meeting, and just wanted to thank you for coming forward. It's I know it's no small feat, and appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you very much. And it is on behalf of a lot of neighbors. You know, this isn't an isolated discussion. They were fine with me, you know, presenting on their behalf. But we've got a lot of concerned people in this neighborhood.
Absolutely noted. And we appreciate when somebody steps forward and does one delegation as opposed to the whole community. So thank you, Mr. Workman, for being that person to bring it forward.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other questions? If not, motion to receive this delegation and refer it to the Director of Public Works for his annual report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
You're gonna have to unmute him.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, the only other thing I would ask is that Mr. Workman forward us that presentation so we can ensure that it's circulated to the Director of Public Works.
Absolutely. Mr. Workman, you heard that?
Will do. Yep.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye now.
And Councillor Belch?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, that is approved. Our next item is item 8.2, Alex Schmidt, Gani Enduro NTB race.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, Mr. Schmidt has joined us.
Very good. Welcome, Mr. Schmidt. The floor is yours for your delegation. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So we are back this year again to approach council to run another mountain bike race in the Millbrook Valley Trails. So we had this race last year, named the Gani Enduro, hosted again through the Millbrook Valley Trails and Ganaraska Forest. If you all recall, last year we attempted to run from the fairgrounds, but due to due to the Millbrook Valley Trails brochure saying the Baxter Creek Trail is not mountain bike friendly, we switched to the local landowner on Carvath. So we're back again this year. Yeah, last year was a huge success. We had 120 racers participate in the event and nothing but positive comments. Some really amazing comments of some people having their best day on a bike at the event. So we're back this year looking to bring it to life again. Our goal this year is to aim to have around 200 racers. That's our 2022 goal. So background on the Enduro mountain bike race, what it is a mountain bike race that contains 6 time stages within a course. So we have planned a 46-kilometer race through the Millbrook Valley Trails. And as you all know, the Ganaraska Forest is currently shut due to cleanup efforts after the storm. And that's why this delegation has been delayed to so late. I know last year we discussed, I should do it earlier, but that forest closures really derailed our plans. But we've come up with a plan to use solely the Millbrook Valley Trails since Ganaraska will not be open in time for us to run our race. But the race will start from the Agricultural Fairgrounds, 13 Frederick Street. We'll have 2 courses. So the plan will be, we'll start from the fairgrounds, ride down Baxter Creek into the Millbrook Valley Trails, do a loop in the morning, and have everyone return to the fairgrounds for a barbecue hosted by Millbrook Mountain Bike Club. And then we'll head back out for a second loop in the afternoon. Similar course, slightly different variations. So yeah, this is a Ontario Cycling Association sanctioned event and insured through them as well. And so we're seeking permission to utilize the Millbrook Valley Trails as well as Zion Line and Glamorgan Road. So here we have a photo of the course for the morning course. So we start at the green dot, which is the fairgrounds, head into the Millbrook Valley Trails through Baxter Creek Trail and into the ponds area. Then we'll head out on I believe it's Cedar Trail out to Elgar. We'd ride north on Elgar to Zion Line, across Zion Line, and then south on Fire Route. I believe it's 320 now. And then return on the Ganaraska Transit back to the Millbrook Valley Trails, and then back towards the fairground. Go to the next slide. That'll be the afternoon course. So similar from the fairgrounds into the Millbrook Valley Trails, across Ganaraska Transit this time, back north on Fire Route 320, west on Zion, south on Glamorgan, and then back onto the Ganaraska Transit there, back towards MVT and the fairgrounds to conclude the race courses. So if we go to the next slide, so those are the two courses. The morning loop, 21K, we depart around 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. started, and the afternoon loop, we would depart around 1:30 p.m. Races will start out in groups of 2 or groups of 10, 2 minutes apart, just to try and space people out in the forest, as it is a small area, and sending out that many riders at once will definitely lead to some bottlenecks. So the stages are the only part that are timed, and they're raced individually. And again, only those time sections are timed. So when they do jump onto Zion or Elgar or Glamorgan, they're not racing at that point in time. They're casually riding, transitioning between one stage to the next stage. I know that was a concern last year with Carveth, that the race started on Carveth, but riders were not actually racing at that time. So we do not need a full road closure. Last year, we set up some signs and some volunteers to notify traffic that there was a bicycle race in progress. So again, similar to this year, we'll have volunteer course models placed at the beginning and end of each stage, arrows taped along the course to guide participants through the race. And we'll have 2 qualified first aid volunteers on site and the course throughout the day. So our road uses, we're looking to use Fire Route 310, Zion Line, Glamorgan, and I forgot to include Elgar Drive there as well. Participants are not racing on that road, as mentioned. They're just transitioning between the 2 stages. And we'll have signs placed on the roads to warn traffic of cyclists. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, so the benefits again to hosting a race in town is food and lodging. So this year, Millbrook Mountain Bike Club has joined up with us to host the barbecue in between the morning course and the afternoon course, as part of a kind of year end for their club, as well as spreading awareness of their work with the larger cycling community. We are reaching out to Pastry Peddler to come out and set up a booth at the fairgrounds as well as we'll be looking into a couple other small, local shops that we might be able to bring in to add to the ambiance of the lunch break there at the race, as well as lodging now and in the future as people come to stay. This was a bit of a copy paste from last year's, which involved some COVID restrictions, so there was no lodging. So this year there may be people staying locally in town, which will benefit the community. Great trail exposure to the greater mountain bike community. Last year, that was a great comment we got from a lot of people. The feedback was positive of the trails that we had in this area. A lot of people were very surprised that this existed and have continued to come back to ride the trails. Unfortunately, Ganaraska being closed has hindered that desire for people to come out. But hopefully in future, once Ganaraska is open again, that'll encourage more people to come out and ride this way. And then it benefits community health as more people join the Millbrook Mountain Bike Club. You get more people in the forest, more people riding bikes, more advocates for the forest and a healthier community overall. Yeah, that concludes my presentation. Yeah, we are looking for usage of the trails and the roads. Now, I did send Wayne some road allowance forms last week, but I know he was on vacation, so I'm sure he hasn't made it to those emails yet as he's starting up again.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Any questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Thanks, Alex, for the delegation. I'm glad to hear the event's running back. I know you made a comment in the beginning of the presentation about understanding the need for notice, and I didn't piece together that the closure of the forest would have big implications for that, but it's still a fairly tight timeline with regards to turnaround from a municipal standpoint. So I
Certainly.
appreciate that comment, but staff are going to need to do their due diligence. So I think there might be, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but it doesn't, I understand the circumstance and piece that together, but it's still a bit of a bind of a turnaround time for us to review. But I think you mentioned the insurance coverage that's there, and obviously that's something I'm always concerned about. Have you shared that sort of coverage understanding with Wayne in the correspondence? Because I know that's something that staff is probably going to want to see and just ensure that there's coverage, because we have our own liability exposure issues as a municipality that we need to always be wary of. So if you haven't, I'm sure staff would like to see that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention also.
Yeah, of course. I can. I have not shared that yet. I don't have my permits yet for insurance, but I can send you what we had last year because it'll be identical this year. So I can send that over, absolutely. And yeah, I fully understand it's the delay and or the short timeline. I was optimistic that coming 2 council meetings before the race would help. I know last time I came the meeting right before the race, so that was poor timing. Yeah, we were in debates for a long time of actually running the race or not with the closure, but we'll do better again next year. We'll come earlier.
Thank you.
Very good. And yeah, the permits will have to be obviously the insurance from this year, not last year. It's fine to
Correct.
see what you had last year, but we obviously need the new insurance.
Certainly.
And yeah, I won't repeat what Deputy Mayor has just stated, but certainly you run a really tight timeline, and to try and invite people out and advertise it, you can't really do that until it's been approved. So it certainly makes things difficult on your side, so I can appreciate it. But everybody will collectively look forward to an earlier date that you'll apply next year, just in case, because it does cut it pretty close. Question, you made reference to use of the fairgrounds. Have you got a letter of confirmation from the Millbrook Ag Society to use their grounds?
Yeah, I have an email where we've corresponded saying, yes, it's available for use. I haven't booked it, just waiting for a couple other puzzle pieces to line in place, but I can forward that as well, and I can finalize that and get that official letter out to council.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? I do have the motion from last year, of which I would just simply add, and Millbrook Ag Society has confirmed their support. Other than that, last year's motion would suffice unless there's other questions. Deputy Mayor Graham?
No,
Nope.
I would move that. Yeah.
All right, so it would be that the Gani Enduro race information presented by Alex Schmidt be supported by council and principal, subject to staff satisfaction, and Millbrook Ag Society confirms support, and that there is proper signage, parking, insurance, and safety precautions in place, and that the information be forwarded to the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee. That was the motion. Deputy Mayor's moved it. Second, Councillor Shaw. Any further questions? Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Once again, thanks, Alex. Best of luck, hopefully for a very successful event.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, our next item will be a public meeting, item 9.1. I will need a resolution to open the public meeting. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
I apologize, I lost my mouse. Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item, 9.2, report planning 2022-42 Plumpton zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. Ellis, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden, members of council, staff, and members of the public. Today's public meeting is about a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for an existing lot of record at 16 Frederick Street in Millbrook. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the construction of a new detached garage with an accessory apartment as a second story to that garage. The property itself is approximately 0.31 hectares or 0.76 acres in size, with about 70 feet of frontage on Frederick Street. It's currently developed with a single detached dwelling and an accessory garage. That existing accessory garage will be demolished to facilitate the construction of the new detached garage. As indicated in the application, the dwelling is serviced and the property is serviced with piped water and sewer services at this moment in time, and Frederick Street is a year-round municipally maintained road. So the new garage will be approximately 80.3 square meters or 864 square feet in size. And as I indicated, it will be 2 stories. In accordance with our current official plan policies and our current zoning bylaw regulations, an accessory dwelling unit is not permitted in an accessory building. That's why a planning approval is required. So the applicants have made an application to the township for the required zoning bylaw amendment. And the purpose of this public meeting is to give members of council and members of the public an opportunity to ask questions and to receive information about the proposed application, and for staff to give you additional information with regard to how this application conforms to the official plan, complies with the zoning bylaw with the proposed changes. The proposed amendment will change the zoning on the lands to permit the accessory apartment in a portion of a new detached garage. Currently, the property is zoned urban residential 1 and natural linkage. The natural linkage is a small area at the north portion of the property. In accordance with our standard township zoning bylaw, a maximum of 1 accessory dwelling unit is permitted in a single detached dwelling. You cannot have an accessory apartment in a detached building at this time. As proposed, the zoning bylaw amendment will provide relief from section 11.2 of our zoning bylaw to allow an accessory apartment to be located within a detached accessory building. With this, the zoning on the property will change from the urban residential 1 zone to the urban residential 1 exception 10 temporary use 6 zone. The temporary use is required because our current official plan policy does not allow us to rezone the property to permit the accessory apartment in a detached building on a permanent basis. They are only permitted on a temporary basis at this point in time in our official plan. That necessitates the need for the temporary use part of the bylaw. I can tell you that staff are considering an amendment to the official plan to address this issue moving forward. As you're aware, there have been many changes in the planning world since the approval of the township's official plan, and we will be looking at doing an amendment to that official plan to catch ourselves up with some of these changes. A temporary use bylaw can be in place for 3 years. At the end of that 3 years, the township does have the ability to renew that bylaw for further periods of 3 years. However, as I said, we will be considering amending the official plan so that that renewal of the temporary use is not required. One last thing, with the draft bylaw that's attached to this report, when I was preparing for this meeting, I noticed there is a small error in the Schedule A in that the natural linkage zone is not shown on Schedule A to the zoning bylaw. So that will be a revision to the draft bylaw that you see before you today. The revision will include just a recognition of where that natural linkage zone is on the property currently. As required, notice of this application was circulated by first-class prepaid mail to all assessed persons within 120 meters or 400 feet of the subject property. It was circulated to all required ministries and agencies, and a sign was posted on the property. Managers within the township were also circulated. We did not receive any comments regarding this application from members of the public. Nobody asked questions, nobody submitted any objections or letters in support. Township staff have no objections to the application. Staff will be confirming water and wastewater servicing for the detached building, and a grading and drainage plan will be required as part of the building permit. Autonomy Region Conservation Authority staff confirm that the application is consistent with sections 2.1, 2.2, and 3.1 of the provincial policy statement. They've confirmed that a permit is not required from the authority for the project, and the subject property is not located within an area that is subject to the policies contained in the source protection plan. Since the writing of the report, we've also received written confirmation from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board that they did not identify any issues or concerns with the zoning bylaw amendment. Given the comments received as part of the circulation, staff's review of the application in terms of the township's official plan, Peterborough County official plan, the provincial policy statement, and the growth plan, the recommendations before council today are that council receive any comments, that council receive all comments related to the zoning bylaw amendment application, and that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 2018-58 as amended be presented to council for consideration at a future meeting. And as I've indicated, we will make that slight correction to the Schedule A in the bylaw when we bring it back to council for review and consideration.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for that summation, Karen. Question, I don't have any issues with what's being proposed. I understand we need to catch up with the new provincial legislation. So the temporary is just what we have to use temporarily. My only question was, with the inclusion of the apartment, is there consideration for the continuation of the driveway along the side of the hill for, I'm thinking of emergency services and the ability to access, that dwelling should in the event of an emergency? Is that anything that is planned? It wasn't quite exactly clear, but when I look at the topographical map, the driveway does end much before the existing garage, so I'm guessing it's not the typical garage usage. But I didn't know if there was a requirement or the intention to extend that road towards the back of the property so that there would be access, because it does change a little bit if someone's going to be occupying the space.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to Deputy Mayor Graham and members of council, you can see on the site plan attached to the application that there is a note so that the driveway will be extended back toward the proposed garage. So the current garage location is in the dark black, and then the proposed garage. So that note in the browny red color indicates that the driveway will be extended back to the new garage. And it's our understanding from our pre-consultation sessions that the first story of the garage will be used as a garage. So there will be parking of vehicles and storage of household tools and equipment in the garage.
Thank you for that clarification.
Very good. Councillor Huntley, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess my only comment was to Ms. Ellis. I'm glad we're catching up. It seems like a lot of work for these guys to go through, and this is the direction that we've kind of been pointed in. So hopefully the next people, can get there a little quicker. I guess back to, I don't know whether Deputy Mayor Graham was asking the question or started the question, but I guess the 3-year time limit that's on the apartment, if we do an official plan change based on this, and it takes away the time limit, does that automatically take out the time limit on this one, or would they have to come back again to have it then, added to the bylaws? I'm just curious on the process on that one.
To you, Mayor McFadden, to Councillor Huntley and members of council. Should the township amend the official plan to permit accessory dwelling units in an accessory building, we would have to facilitate the implementation of that policy in the zoning bylaw. If we can achieve both of those amendments within the 3 years, there would be no need to renew the temporary use bylaw. This property and with this accessory dwelling would be legalized with the changes to the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Okay, perfect. That was my question.
Very good. Any further questions from members of council? Just a couple. So one with regards to just regular development charges. I understand if you demolish a building and rebuild on the same frame, on the same based on the same footprint, then there's no DCs. But in this one where they're moving it, does it still qualify for no DCs?
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So DCs do not apply to accessory buildings. And I believe that in our current development charges bylaw, accessory apartments are exempt from development charges. So notwithstanding that they're demolishing an existing garage and replacing the garage and adding an accessory dwelling unit, none of that is subject to development charges.
Very good. And just to be clear, the no development charges also applies then to the use of allocation of water and wastewater?
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council, I believe that the allocation of water and wastewater will be coming through the existing single detached dwelling, so it will be not counted as a separate service. But Director Hancock may wish to speak to that.
Very good. Mr. Hancock?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the question, the initial discussions that we've had internally at senior staff and with the property owner is that the connection for sanitary and water would be on the private property and therefore would not be a separate service on DeFrederick Street. We are waiting for the details of that, and we're going to look at that as part of the building permit process, but there at this point would be no separate charge for water, wastewater on this unit. I think the other part of it is that senior staff have suggested that we're going to develop a policy as discussed through the official plan and through zoning that will look at servicing and take into account the size of the service and what's needed for each unit and whether or not separate allocations will be needed. But it has not come forward in this case as they're hooking on to their services on existing property.
Very good. So do they, what's the qualifications for the individual that would be, for example, shutting off the water and teeing it off? In this situation, if they do a second meter, then that's one thing. But if they're going off the same meter, which is probably in their house, then there's a lot involved versus teeing it off wherever they're doing it. What do we have a process in place or a check, or is that something we should bring back in a policy going forward, considering this appears to be probably the direction of the next official plan?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the works that are contemplated on this are under the building permit, so they would be covered under the drain, as we call drain permit, as part of the building permit, and would be located or connected to the existing house. So that would be covered under our chief building officials section. If the property owner is wanting separate services because of size or because of certain restrictions or other things, for example, if they want a separate water meter, we would charge them for the separate water meter, but they still have the ability to tie into the existing system at the building or in front of the building in the front yard. So that's what we're expecting in this case. But I think in the longer term, as we get more of these, we must have a cleaner policy to say, do the units require a separate service or not? We said in this case it does not, so it would be covered under the building permit. But I think a broader policy has to be developed with senior staff because we're going to see more and more of these as we go forward, particularly with the the process of the provincial government wanting to add more building units on and auxiliary and accessory apartments. So
very good, excellent. We'll finish off this public process and then maybe for consideration a motion at the end to provide some direction on a broader policy to deal with the bigger issue. Any other questions or comments from members of council before I open it up to the public? None. All right, then we will take questions or comments from members of the public. Madam Clerk, I would ask you to let them any attendees in that raise their hands.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, I'll keep an eye on the attendee list, but I don't see anybody raising their hand currently.
Okay, we do currently have several attendees, so I will give it a second while people attempt to get their hands up if they wish to speak. Okay, seeing none then, I will turn it back to council then for consideration of the report. Recommendations before us, receive all comments and that a bylaw would come forward at a future meeting. Deputy Mayor Graham,
And move the report and accept the recommendations.
very good. Second. Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, record vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
I'm going to be concerned if he responds.
I would agree. Through you, Mayor McFadden, do you want me just to remove Councillor Belch and just move on?
Yes, please.
And Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. I need a resolution to close the public meeting. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Shaw, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Oh, you're still muted, Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Very good. We saw the lips moving. Good. Motion is approved. Can I just suggest that then, in light of that, the previous discussion, that we ask staff to bring back a policy relative to the accessory suites as it relates to the allocation of water and wastewater services specifically, and development charges. Mr. Hancock, does that cover it off? I want to provide the freedom to come back, understanding that these are going to become more popular as we move forward with a future official plan. So I want to ensure that we capture it as a policy as opposed to one-offs.
I believe so. I think that's the best way to handle it. So I
Okay.
believe bring forward a policy would be good. Excellent.
Very good. I have a mover. Deputy Mayor Graham, second. Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, everybody. Item 10.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held August 2nd, 2022. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes? Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Shaw, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Moving along to reports. Item 11.1, Report Finance 2022-15, Actual to Budget, January to June 2022. Ms. Pope, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden. I have before you the actual budget report. It covers both Q1 and Q2 and also provides a summary on the second page of just where we're at with COVID total operating costs. As of Q2 for 2022, we're at $40,235. So combined since it started, it's $617,622 that we've had a loss due to the COVID pandemic. All of our management team is here and available to answer any questions if you have any specific questions. If we just take a look at the percentages there, the remaining funds we're looking at between on average 53% overall for all departments on average, and water wastewater approximately 58% remaining.
Very good. Questions from any members of council? None? Motion then to receive that report. Councillor Shaw, Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item, Report Finance 2022-16, Rehabilitation of Main Street Water Main, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, Green Funding. Ms. Pope.
Thank you. I have before you just the report, which summarizes all the different steps we've taken in advising council through the budget process. Previously, the application process back in 2021, our approval that we received, and then also now we're at the place of the transfer payment agreement requiring authorization from council to enter that agreement with the motion that's included in the recommendations. Therefore, this is an information report and to confirm council's participation in this program for our green funding.
Very good. Questions from members of council? Councillor Huntley?
Just through you, Chair, to Ms. Pope. I guess the question is, we've taken a long time to get here. I know we've put money away. Like, are we in danger of, any of the tenders that go out, like being completely outrageous compared to what we planned for? Or like, what's our general feeling on that? I know we obviously can't predict until we get those tenders back, but have we been buffering for that as we've been going along?
I can just transfer it over to the Director of Public Works for a little bit more about the operational side of things. But just as you'll note here, we did receive approval of funding back in, we were nominated in January and received the notice in April. So we were aware, and they do allow for costs in any contracts that we have incurred as of March the 2nd to be included in this program. So I'll just ask the Director of Public Works to speak to the logistics of the expenses today and if there's any issue with that.
To Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Huntley, number one, I think it's quite clear that we've had unexpected increases this year. Our process in this was to call a tender late this year and have it come forward for the new council's approval in 2023. We are looking, the original tender for Main Street had looked at what's referred to as trench restoration or roadway restoration. We're going to include in the capital budget a new surface on Main Street. We're proposing that, or will be proposing it in the capital. That is an add-on, but the numbers we're hoping with an early with a call late this year going through the winter that we'll get the best tender prices we can. I think we're always open to unforeseen changes in the market, and we will have to deal with that once we see the tender close, but we are trying to keep the budget numbers updated. We've asked the consultant on this one engaged to update their numbers, and hopefully we'll be as close as we can be going into 2023 with the budget numbers. But I think we know that a lot of the numbers are increasing. We're hoping maybe with the slowdown in the marketplace that they'll come back to some realistic values, but that's not happened as of yet. So we're hoping with the late tender it will help.
Very good.
Hancock.
Further questions? None? Motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Councillor Shaw and Councillor Belch. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Pope and Mr. Hancock. Next report, Planning 2022-44, second quarter activity report, building economic development and planning. Mr. Conley?
Through your worship, thank you, and through you to council. You have before you Planning Report 2022-44, which is the second quarter activity report, building, planning, economic development, and planning. Recommendation that council receive report Planning 2022-44, second quarter activity report, building, economic development, and planning for information. As we have these regular reports throughout the year, what you have before you is a report which talks about for second quarter reporting with respect to activity on the building, planning, economic development side of the house within the township. Attachment number 1, which is on page number 2, provides a summary of building department statistics for the second quarter of 22 and compares that to the second quarter of 21, and then also has year-over-year comparisons, so you're able to compare this year versus last year as well as the quarters. So highlights for that: for the second quarter of 2022, number of building permits increased slightly up to 74, up from 56 in the same quarter of 2021, increase of 32%. And in the second quarter, 9 single-family dwellings were created in the second quarter of 22 versus 4 for the same period in 21. On page number 2, building permits for the second quarter are up substantially in terms of value, $89,413 versus $42,280 for the same period of 2021, and that's an increase of 97%. What that translates into is total development fees of $282,652 on a total construction value of $11,614,730 for the second quarter of 22 alone. So what this means is that we remind council that the first quarter is usually fairly slow in terms of building activity and fees, and the second quarter sort of maintains that. And you'll notice that the increase in the value of construction is up significantly by around 305%. On the economic development and planning inquiries, what we have before is table number 1, which is provided in the middle of the page in front of you, is again from a quarter over quarter. We provide second quarter for 2022 as compared to the second quarter for 21, and also year over year. What you'll see is basically land use inquiries are keeping steady. Now, keep in mind, this is the first 2 quarters of this year. I think what we expect is the third and fourth quarters to have a little bit of difference. But the trend in land use inquiry is pretty much staying the same from quarter over quarter, but 198 versus 193 of 2022 versus 21. And then on top of that, what you're seeing is legal requests going down, same with preliminary severance reviews. I won't go into too much detail in that table, but again, this does reflect is still a very active and healthy real estate development market within the township for the second quarter of 22. Again, that's building on the year of 2021, which is a banner year, which also exceeded 2020, which was also a very significant year. In page number 3, what we have is another table. What we're trying to do, and what we've said before, is we may get requests for example, 198 requests with respect to properties. What we also have is there's a breakdown in that table of where that is with respect to the 3 wards within the township. But also, as we've said before, sometimes we'll get an inquiry on a property, but we'll get many inquiries on that. So what we try to do is provide an additional metric, my apologies, with respect to the average number of inquiries per property by ward. And what you'll see on average, we get at least 4. So for the 198, we multiply that by 4. That's the number of inquiries we'll get with respect to the total workload for the department. The only other thing I'd like to draw attention to is that, again, it's still a strong real estate market, but with the most recent rise in interest rates, staff will be looking to see the impact on the local real estate market in third quarter and fourth quarter of this year. In terms of significant applications, we've also provided a summary with respect to his plans of subdivision in Mount Pleasant, Ida, Springville, Millbrook, which are Vargas and CSU, along with the anticipated planned subdivision application associated with Kawartha Downs, the Minister's zoning order, which we expect actually sometime very shortly. In addition, staff recently completed work in its last council meeting with the growth management strategy, which is also built on the work that we had done with the county with its new official plan, and that is before the province for approval. On top of that, we're also doing work with Tower Hill North, the plan of subdivision, and this fall we are expecting grading of the property, at least some of the property, with respect to Tower Hill North next to the municipal office. Challenges we have is that, again, workload is significant. We do have a vacancy with the planner, but with that, we're looking to try and recruit. We did go out to try and recruit. There's difficulty in terms of finding talent and experience, so we're going to be going out to the market again later on this fall. But in the meantime, we've had discussions with hiring 2 consulting firms that will help with the workload as we go forward. The highlight in terms of our financial impact is looking at when we do our budgets, and we're looking for next year's budget, but the current budget we're in is that for the first half of 22, building permit fees are $132,169, which are ahead of the schedule to either meet or exceed the $200,000, which was budgeted for revenue for 2022. With that, you have attachment number 1, which is the building department statistics. I do apologize for the small font. I tried a number of times to import that, and I thought it was larger. So again, I do appreciate, certainly bad on my poor eyes, and I can imagine the same for council. But if you have any questions, by all means, I can handle some of those questions. And I also have Kyle Phillips if you have any specific question of the building department side.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Anything specifically on the small text? Nothing? Very good. Motion then to receive that report. Thank you, Mr. Conley. We got Councillor Shaw, Deputy Mayor Graham, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
And Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Very good. Motion is approved. Next item, report planning 2022-34, transport pathways bylaw. Ms. Ellis.
Mayor McFadden, members of council, planning report 2022-34 is before you today with the recommendation that bylaw number 2022-51 be approved to prohibit the establishment of transport pathways that increase the vulnerability of the township's municipal drinking water sources. Under the source protection plan, municipalities are directed to establish a transport pathway bylaw to prohibit new transport pathways in a wellhead protection area A. And a wellhead protection area A is defined by a 100-meter radius around existing or planned municipal wellheads. So Carly, if you could flip to the schedules of the attached bylaw, council and members of the public will be able to see. Thank you. So Schedule 1 is the Millbrook Municipal Drinking Water System. So for council's information, the transport pathway bylaw will apply to the area in red. If you could flip to the next schedule, please. This is the planned municipal drinking water system on Lansdowne Street. So again, you can see the area to which the bylaw will apply. It's the area in red. So for council's information, Terry Cox of Autonomy Conservation did provide some technical background information to describe what a transport pathway is, why it's required, etc. And Terry is available today to answer any technical questions that council may have.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, maybe it's worth bringing Terry on to actually give us a definition of the transport pathway, so we do all understand what it is.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, can you do that?
For you, Mayor McFadden, I have promoted Terry, and I believe she is in Cyber Journey. There, she has joined us. Mayor
Very good.
McFadden.
Welcome, Terry.
Good
There you are.
afternoon. There I am. Thank you for having me. Transport pathways are conditions of land resulting from human activity that increase the vulnerability of a municipal drinking water.
Hello.
Mayor
might have just-
McFadden,
Oh, there we go.
Down.
No, sorry. Terry, we can't hear you. All of a sudden it went maybe mute and then try it again.
Okay.
Oh, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. How's that now?
All right, we're good. Yes.
All right. Excellent. Okay. So the Clean Water Act is all about protecting the raw water that the municipality draws on to provide drinking water. And under the Clean Water Act, certain activities can pose a drinking water threat because of the associated risk of a contaminant spilling or leaking and getting into that raw water source. Under the Clean Water Act, there's also something called a transport pathway, which is distinct from a drinking water threat. So a transport pathway is a condition of the land that increases the vulnerability of the drinking water source. So consider a straw in a slushy. That straw would represent a transport pathway if that slushy were the aquifer upon which the municipality is drawing its drinking water. It allows a shortcut to the aquifer in the same way that a contaminant could move directly or more quickly bypassing the natural filtering processes that the overburden would allow for, and a contaminant could get down into that aquifer and get into the municipal drinking water source. That's the difference between a drinking water threat and a transport pathway. So the Trent Source Protection Plan does include a policy that encourages municipalities to put a bylaw in place, essentially limiting the ability for new transport pathways to be created within 100 meters of the municipal wellheads, so as to avoid putting another straw in the slushy or a new straw in the slushy.
Very good. Thank you, Terry. Councillor Huntley, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, to Terry, thank you for the explanation. I just want to maybe, so what it's really saying is that nobody else can drill a well in that area, or is there more to it than that?
They cannot drill a well if they're going to increase the vulnerability of the water source. So Ontario Regulation 903 is the provincial tool used to manage wells. Generally speaking, if a well is
Oh, we just lost you again, Terry. No. Terry, we've lost you. Oh,
Each
maybe
other?
Terry's lost us. No.
No, I can.
Okay, there you go. You're back. Okay,
All right.
sorry, we missed
Okay.
that answer. I apologize.
Sure. A well constructed to current standards under
Oh.
We're never getting it to know.
We're missing. I'm sorry. We're losing you
or
again.
not.
There
lost
you
me?
are.
Oh.
Now you're back. Now you're back again.
Okay, I'm gonna take a moment and unplug my antenna
Okay.
here and see if that helps with things.
Uh-oh. What did she unplug?
Does everyone else hear that noise?
Yes,
When-
the clicking. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a broken transport pathway, I think.
Through Mayor McFadden, it appears Ms. Cox may be frozen as well.
Yes. Somebody just disappeared. Did you just move her out, Cindy?
Through Mayor McFadden, I did not, I believe. Let me just bring up, I bet she just lost connectivity. Yeah, she's gone. We can keep an eye to see if she quickly comes back in as an attendee if you'd like.
What I was going to suggest, maybe we could just take a quick couple.
Oh,
never
she's
mind.
back.
She's back. Very good.
All right. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are, Terry. Very good. Excellent.
My apologies.
You've got Councillor Huntley on the edge of his seat for this response. That's twice. So here we go. Okay.
Oh my gosh. So that was with respect to whether or not a well would create a transport pathway. Is that right, Councillor Huntley?
That's correct. Like, if not a well, then what is a transport pathway? Just to, but yes.
Probably something we're seeing more of lately, a geothermal system certainly could create a transport pathway through disturbing the material above the aquifer. A properly constructed well would not typically be a transport pathway, but where you have a cluster of wells, 5 or more wells within 50 meters of each other, that has to date been considered a transport pathway under the Clean Water Act. Infrastructure, underground infrastructure in the form of sewers can pose a transport pathway. The determination of whether or not an activity on the landscape will create a condition that's a transport pathway is really a decision to be made by a qualified individual. Typically, that has been a hydrogeologist to date, and they, in their professional opinion, can make a determination of whether a particular condition of land that may be proposed would increase the vulnerability of the water source.
Okay. Through you, Chair. Thank you, Terry, for clearing that up. That helps me visualize what a pathway is.
Very good. No, understanding and recognizing that most, all of those homes are serviced by municipal water, there wouldn't be any need, I believe, for any new wells. However, is there a concern for historical wells that would have serviced those homes quite a while ago that they have to be properly tapped and inspected, or are we just moving on? How does that work?
Ontario Regulation 903, which is administered through the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, addresses existing wells. And it is my understanding that if a well is not currently being maintained for use as a drinking water source, then it must be decommissioned in accordance with the specific requirements set out under that regulation. So if there are existing wells there that are not being used for drinking water purposes, then they may well be required to be decommissioned. While today we have a comprehensive means of tracking new wells, where they are and what type they are, unfortunately, as you go successive decades into the past, that information isn't as readily available and may not have originally been recorded. So part of the drinking water source protection program is a significant component of outreach, encouraging people to undertake best practices, and that includes identifying and decommissioning those old wells because they may well represent a straw that's already there.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? If not, thank you very much, Terry, and thank you, Karen. Very informative report. We do have a report and a recommendation. Can I get a motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation? Councillor Shaw and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Thanks.
Motion is approved. Next item, report planning 2022-43, Cameron Court, Cameron Ida subdivision agreement. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden, members of council. Planning report 2022-43 is before you today with the recommendations that council recognize Cameron Court as the road name for Street A in subdivision application 15T-15001. And secondly, that bylaw number 2022-52 be approved to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the subdivision agreement between Ian Malcolm Cameron, 1494339 Ontario Limited, and the Corporation of the Township of Cavan Monaghan, with the insertion of final financial numbers and other minor edits authorized by the Township Solicitor and/or CAO. We do have a draft agreement that is attached to this report, but we do need to finalize things right up to the 11th hour. But we are, just for council's information, the plan is quickly moving towards final approval. We're getting clearance letters, and the township is looking forward to clearing our own conditions, of which a signed subdivision agreement is one of those conditions. Please note that although we're asking that you pass a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement today, the agreement will only be signed once we have finalized all of the financial numbers and included at a last review of the wording of the agreement, and we receive all required insurance and financial securities.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Any questions from members of council? What's the expected timeline on that, Ms. Ellis, relative to the not signing it right away?
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So we expect to be back to you very shortly. I know that the owners of the subdivision are quite anxious to finalize the completion of the subdivision and proceed with on-site activities this fall.
Very good. Excellent. There's no questions then. Motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Next report, ECD 2022-07, Community Improvement Plan Expansion. Ms. Ayat.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden. Through you, the report before you is Planning and Economic Development ECD 2022-07. With the following recommendations: that council adopt bylaw number 2022-53, being a bylaw to adopt a community improvement plan. Number 2, that council adopt bylaw number 2022-54, being a bylaw to designate community improvement project areas. And finally, that council authorize staff as directed by the CAO to establish a CIP implementation committee and assign a community improvement administrator to assist with the implementation of the Millbrook Community Improvement Plan.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Ayat. And thank you for all the work on this. This has been a big project, so thank you. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Through you, Mayor, just an extension or to reiterate, I just thanks Bridget and Councillor Huntley and all the staff's efforts on this. It has been a big project, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition and excited to see the impact that it has when it does get up and running here. So thanks again.
Very welcome. Me too.
And with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to receive the report and accept the recommendation moved by Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Shaw. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Next report, Public Works 2022-18 Waste Management 1-year contract extension with Withers Waste Management.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, the recommendations before you is that council approve a 1-year contract extension with Withers Waste Management for curbside and disposal services from September 9, 2022 until September 9, 2023, and that the clerk and mayor be authorized to sign bylaw 2022-56, being a bylaw to execute a waste management agreement between the township and 2337700 Ontario Limited, which is operating as Withers Waste Management for this time period. For council's information in this report, we've highlighted some of the ongoing changes that are happening in the waste management area. Number one, most are aware that we're in a transition period with the Blue Box program. That is something that county staff have been discussing with township staff and will be updating county council as it unravels. That's where private industry is taking over the Blue Box programs and will be operating through the county for that. Number two, there is a report coming forward on kitchen waste pickup, which may have an implication to our present kitchen waste program in Millbrook. We're waiting for details on that, and that is to come forward. I think the timing of the building at Bensford to handle kitchen waste is still set for 2023, but we haven't seen an update on that yet. And again, county council will be reporting on that matter. And number three, just for council's information, there was a motion at county council that was passed to have a consultant engaged to review garbage collection at the county level to look at sort of the pros and cons of that collection program and financial implications. It's my understanding that the county have recently hired a new waste management manager, and they will be hiring a consultant to do this review and come back to county council with a report on that matter. This being said, we also had a tender that we rejected on the curbside collection because it had such a large increase in budget numbers and in costs that we were wanting to go back and have a discussion with our present operator. So the 1-year contract is before you to try and understand what's coming forward at the other levels and what may be happening in the industry overall. And it is, as noted in the report, fairly close to our budget line at the end of the year. There is a possibility of being slightly over budget, but it is something that is an operating budget, and we will monitor it as best we can going through to the end of 2022. So that's my presentation, Mr. Mayor, with some background on this report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hancock. Any questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the report, Wayne. I think as you said, this is the best case scenario in the face of not many good alternatives. So commend you on that. I guess the only thing that kind of really stood out to me, and I don't, obviously it's maybe I'm being too morose, but the worst case scenario about the 90-day cancellation or notice of cancellation. I mean, realistically, if that were to occur, is there any remotely feasible opportunity for within 90 days to secure an alternative provider for this service?
To Mr. Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, the 90 days is a time period that we've seen in other contracts. It does allow the municipality time to tender if we need to. We know that by tendering, we tried that process earlier this year, and we did receive only 2 prices. they were quite high. It does also give the contractor an opportunity to just, they have to deal with their equipment and their staff if they're no longer going to be our operator. So I think the 90 days is it's a fair time period to both parties, and it is being used in other agreements as a reasonable time period for us to retender if we have to. My suggestion is that the market is very tight. Prices are quite high, and the 1 year hopefully will bring the market conditions back to some normality.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, entertain a motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Shaw, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Oh, you're muted, Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Next report Corporate Services 2022-16 Compliance Audit Committee 2022 Municipal Election. Ms. Page?
Thank you, Mayor McFadden, through you to the members of council. Before you is Corporate Services Report 2022-16 with the recommendation that council approve bylaw number 2022-55, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Compliance Audit Committee for the 2022 municipal election.
Very good. Questions from members of council? None. Motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Page. Next item, report Corporate Services 2022-17 Millbrook Agricultural Society event, first annual Kicking COVID Down the Track truck and tractor pull. Ms. Page?
Through Mayor McFadden, to you and council again. Before you is Corporate Services Report 2022-17 Millbrook Agricultural Society event, first annual Kicking COVID Down the Track truck and tractor pull. The recommendations before you are that council for the Township of Cav-Monaghan designate the event hosted by the Millbrook Agricultural Society on October 14th and 15th of 2022 as a municipally significant event, and that the Millbrook Agricultural Society be responsible for 2 police officers and the policing costs associated during the hours of operation for the refreshment area that will serve alcohol on both October 14th and 15th from 5:30 p.m. till 12 a.m.
Very good, Ms. Page. Any questions from members of council? None. Motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
and Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Page. Next item, report CAO report and capital status. Ms. Hurley?
Good afternoon, council, and the report is before you. If there's any changes, obviously we will add the ones that were addressed or came before you today as a request, but if you have any questions, we're certainly here to answer them.
Very good. On that first page, I noticed, and I don't know whether they've changed, but there's reports that are now due in 2022.
That's correct. And we've had them identified on there for quite some time, actually. But we have pushed them out to 2022.
Okay, any sort of narrow it down as that there's a big difference obviously between next meeting versus December. It's 2 different councils.
Yes, they will be 2 different councils, but the Tree Preservation and Delegation Authority was not a requirement on time sensitive, so we've pushed that out. We're actually is one of the topics that we're meeting with one of our new consultants to take a look at that and see if we can potentially give that project to them. The other one was the investigating advantages of delegated authority. And if you notice, it was on for 2022, but at a council meeting not too long ago, you asked that come before us. And Mr. Conley is putting that before you for September 19th.
Okay, very good. So it's updated. So it should say September 2022. Okay.
It should be updated for the next meeting. Yes, of course.
Okay. And the last one, OPA Amendment Cross Border Services 2022. That was
So
one that we're supposed to do right away.
That is one we've identified for 2022, which is currently obviously now. And I will have to defer to Mr. Conley to see where he's at on that one. But I believe that is one, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is another one that we are going to talk to our consultants about. So
If not, it will be one that staff does with the bringing on the consultants. This will allow more bandwidth, more time for myself to be able to initiate that. So again, we do understand the priority of council and the desire to take care of this sooner than later. So I hear you.
Okay, the significance of that one obviously has to do with cross-border servicing and the official plan that was passed with that recommendation that we deal with it locally as opposed to within the county official plan in June. So obviously it's time sensitive, that's all.
we do understand that, and we are meeting with one of the consultants this Thursday afternoon. So it is one of the topics.
Good. Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, motion then to receive that report. Councillor Shaw and Councillor Belch. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Council committee verbal reports. Anything to report, Councillor Huntley?
None at this time.
Councillor Belch?
Just we'll be checking with Ganaraska as to whether they've cleaned up enough in the Ganaraska to open in September, or whether it's going to be much later.
Very good. And Deputy Mayor Graham?
No, Miller Valley Trails doesn't meet until the end of the month.
Very good. And same at the library, where we haven't had a meeting coming up. Motion then to receive those verbal reports. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Shaw, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. There is no general business, no correspondence for information. A couple items under correspondence for action. The first item is the notice of application for zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan subdivision approval 1071, 1117, and 1151 Brayley Drive, Peterborough. My suggestion would be that given the application and the need for affordable family communities, I would suggest that we provide our support. It is not within our municipality, but as a comment back to the city, that we are supportive of it in close proximity to the Cab-Monaghan border. Any other comments, feedback on it? Deputy Mayor Graham?
I would support that.
Very good. Okay, I've got a motion, so clerk's not writing it, and I did provide it with her, and it basically summarizes that, but I will read it. Whereas the city of Peterborough has received an application for residential development adjacent to our Crestwood community, and whereas the lands in question are ideal for residential development from a servicing location and need for affordable family housing, and whereas there are both an elementary and secondary school within a short walk to this site, and whereas Brayley has public transit allowing easy access to Fleming College, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Cab-Monaghan has no objection to this plan and encourage the city of Peterborough to make this an affordable family community.
Yeah.
That's the more articulate way of saying what I said earlier. Deputy Mayor Graham, we're good? Move?
Yep. So moved.
Councillor Belch, Madam, any comment? Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Obviously, Ms. Page, that's comments that'll go back to the city. That's not specifically in the motion, but that's the intent.
Sorry, Mayor McFadden, can you clarify that again?
So those are comments on that application. So it's not specifically in the motion, but obviously those are comments to go back to the city.
The motion that you just read out, that's the motion that we'll send to the city. Is that what you're clarifying?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, very good. No, it just didn't have in there who we're sending it to, but I thought that was sort of obvious. Okay,
Yes, back to the city of Peterborough. Yes, sorry, I missed the question.
perfect. Next, item 14.2, Richard Weldon, Kawartha Downs request for support letter. So there's a couple of requests in there, one being the regional exhibition status and the other one relative to the bingo. So I was just looking for an update from staff. Ms. Page, do you wish to start on the bingo?
Mayor McFadden, I think Ms. Hurley is going to go first, and then I think we'll speak to the bingo. She's turned her camera on.
Bingo. Okay, over to Ms. Hurley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden and members of council. We wanted to just touch on a couple items in this letter, if I may reference. One is they talk about the approval of the redevelopment plan in last February. For clarification, the MZO and the development was actually approved in December 2021. The other component, as you mentioned, Mayor McFadden, there's two asks here. One is about supporting a motion to support Kawartha Downs as a regional facility. And staff is not familiar with that request, and we respectfully ask for clarification, and we'd like to reach out to Kawartha Downs and ask for clarification on that ask. Just because it's just a little bit unclear of exactly what they're asking for and the reasons behind that. We would report back to you on that. And thirdly, yes, we're in a position to give you an update on Kawartha Downs, not only about the ask with regards to supporting a bingo that Ms. Page will speak to, but the other ask, as you're requested for an update on the development as a whole, and we're in a position to do that. And I think it's important for us to give you the complete picture as we've been working with Kawartha Downs, and we hope to continue to work with Kawartha Downs in the future to try to get all of the applications in that are required. So if I may have your indulgence to speak, Mr. Conley would like to go first, and he'll provide you an update on the planning side. Our chief will then give you an update on his side, and Ms. Page will give you an update on the bingo.
Very good. Mr. Conley?
So through your worship, thank you, Ms. Hurley. Through your worship to the rest of council. As Ms. Hurley had indicated, council did support a minister's zoning order, which was based on pre-consultation with the developer and other interested stakeholders, agencies in November of last year. Council supported that MZO in December, and it was actually approved by the province in March. An update to that is on August 18th. The province Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing published in our local paper a proposal to amend that zoning order. The reason being that even though the zoning order was supported by council and by the minister, one of the things that needed to happen was an amendment to recognize outdoor concerts and an amphitheater in terms of a music amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater that's there. So the quickest and best way is for, with the township supporting with Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, an amendment to the zoning order. So that was published on the 18th of August for 30 days of comment. My expectation is that there'll be no opposition, but support for that, with the idea that it'll go back to the minister for that clarification and that amendment. With respect to the site, so the redevelopment, we did, as I mentioned before, have pre-consultation, and we have worked cooperatively and in a coordinated fashion across the departments within the township for two aspects of that Kawartha Downs redevelopment. One being the plan of subdivision on OP amendment, which is proposed on the north side of the properties, which is 28 and Moore Drive. And then on the south, which is the facility that's been around for 50 years and worked well within the community, and certainly something we've supported in the past. With respect to that, my understanding through this letter and from other, more recently, a meeting that the fire chief and myself had with representatives from Kawartha Downs is that we expect to have the site plan application submitted today, being September 6th, as well as the plan of subdivision OP amendment would be submitted to ourselves in the county today as well. We have in the past, and when I go through the records of what we've done, we've had numerous meetings and tried as best we can to coordinate across departments, not only with respect to individual reports or questions, clarifications. We provided a checklist in terms of what's required on the site plan application, as well as building on the pre-consultation record that we had with the, as I said, the county conservation authority and other parties with respect to the application for the redevelopment, which was in November of last year. So with that, we haven't seen the application. We look forward to seeing the site plan application, the details with that. Same with the plan of subdivision OP amendment. As you would know, your worship and council would know that with that, we have to take a look at the review of the supporting documentation, any information is there, and deem the application complete on both counts of that. But with that, maybe if I sort of revise a little bit what Ms. Hurley said, perhaps even Wayne Hancock, the Director of Public Works, might want to piggyback on some of the conversations. And again, as I said, a coordinated effort we've had working with representatives from the from Kawartha Downs from the township perspective. So perhaps, Mr. Hancock, are you available?
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Just to follow up on the comments, we have been working ongoing with consultants from Kawartha Downs. We have received certainly a draft water report. We've received we have received functional servicing for the commercial site. And we are aware that most consultants are fairly close to wrapping up different parts of the site plan and the residential development. So these are reports that are in draft form. We're expecting to see the complete reports come forward with the application, that is today or sometime this week. It's my understanding the commercial site will come forward first and the residential will follow. On the site itself, we've had some conversations with representatives of Kawartha Downs and discussed some of the works that have taken place, particularly related to grading. Kawartha Downs has applied for a site alteration permit. We have reviewed the site. They had done some stripping and grading and placed some materials on the site to stabilize the subgrade. So that has been completed, and we are waiting for, we're waiting on our side for, I think, the latest updated grading plan that would come as part of the site plan application. And we are also reviewing information on the site alteration permit with our consultant, Cambian, in regard to the suitability of material that could be used for the filling operation on the site. So we have lots of different pieces of the puzzle where I think we're looking for the overall picture. And I trust, John, I think that's covered off most of the items that we've talked about. We have a variety. We certainly had a number of discussions with different consultants on the site and are working as best we can to make things come together here for the final application. So is there anything else I missed there, John?
No, I think, again, thank you, Mr. Hancock. Again, I think one of the things we want to emphasize is that we've had not only through individual emails, but also virtual meetings and in-person on-site meetings across the departments. We've had a good working cooperative relationship with Kawartha Downs and look forward to seeing the final package as it comes forward. And then perhaps, Ms. Hurley, you wish to refer to, I think it was the fire chief next.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Just to reiterate what Mr. Conley's brought up in regards to the site plan and working with Kawartha Downs over the last few months with a number of events that they've had, we've been giving them specific approvals in regards to their fire safety plans with as each event has rolled out. And what we're looking for is a site plan that will articulate their occupant load, as there's been some pushback in regards to Kawartha Downs occupant loads wishes and my occupant loads that I've approved in their fire safety plans. And without the site plan with those calculations provided by Kawartha Downs, the fire department has been artificially keeping their occupancies to a manageable size, and we're looking forward to receiving their documentation to validate the occupant loads in which they wish to have for their outside venues. And that's on the operational side. And on the development side, we look forward to, as Mr. Conley said, all these studies and the site plans and plans so that we can match them up with the approved master fire plan in regards to our capabilities. So we look forward to reviewing that and seeing what the actual developments are going to be on that property.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Ms. Hurley?
It's Ms. Page can give an update on the bingo request, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Through Mayor McFadden to the members of council as well. Staff did receive a proposal to create a new bingo hall at the existing facilities of Kawartha Downs. Staff have been working very closely with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. They've established a criteria and procedures for opening new bingo halls. Part of that criteria is a public notice process, and that did not conclude until September 1st. So staff anticipates to be bringing a report to council to the September 19th meeting. to seek council's approval or not approval to establish a new bingo hall within the facility of Kawartha Downs. The Alcohol and Gaming Corporation, they are the ones that do a regional review to make the final determination on if Romspin can be licensed as a certificate registrar, which would allow them to run a bingo hall within the facility of Kawartha Downs.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Page. Any questions from members of council? None. My suggestion, there is a question mark relative to the an understanding of what a regional facility, the implications of what that is. So I think before we move forward, I think staff has offered to meet with their staff in order to understand what exactly the request entails and what the implications of that are. And I believe that done in combination with a complete application of which I understand is coming forward at some point today, will put council in a much better position for consideration of this request at a future meeting, would be my suggestion of how to proceed. Ms. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is exactly what we're looking for today.
Very good. Okay. So a motion to direct staff to enter into discussions with the Kawartha Downs relative to an understanding of what the regional facility request is, and further to bring that back at a later date once they are once they're comfortable with the response. Ms. Hurley, good?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay.
As long as council is.
Councillor Huntley? Move it. Seconder? Councillor Shaw? Madam Clerk, recorded vote, unless we have other questions, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Recorded vote.
Councillor Belch?
Yes.
Mayor McFadden?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yes.
And Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Okay, thank you. That was item 14.2. And back to your bingo, Ms. Page. It is coming forward at the next meeting, so no further direction from council is required, and we look forward to that report. Next, we have bylaws. Bylaw number 2022-51 being a bylaw to prohibit the establishment of transport pathways that increase the vulnerability of municipal drinking water sources, and bylaw number 2022 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement between Ian Malcolm Cameron and 1494339 Ontario Limited, subdivider, and the Corporation of the Township of Cabmonaghan Municipality, and bylaw number 2022-53 being a bylaw to adopt a community improvement plan, and bylaw number 2022-54 being a bylaw to designate community improvement project areas, and bylaw number 2022-55 being a bylaw to appoint members to the Compliance Audit Committee for the 2022 municipal election, and bylaw number 2022-56 being a bylaw to execute a waste management agreement between the Township of Cabmonaghan and 2337700 Ontario Limited, operating as Withers Waste Management for curbside waste collection and disposal services. Be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham, seconded by Councillor Shaw. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes.
Councillor Belch?
Yes.
And Mayor McFadden?
Yes, motion is approved. Next item is unfinished business. There is none. There's no notices of motion. Confirming bylaw B number 2022-57 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held September 6, 2022. You read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham, seconded by Councillor Belch. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes.
And Councillor Belch?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Motion to adjourn. Got Councillor Shaw and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes.
Councillor Belch?
Yes.
Mayor McFadden?
Yes.
And Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Upcoming meetings, we have the next regular council meeting Monday, September 19th, 2022 at 1 o'clock. Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee meeting Monday, September 26th at 5 o'clock, and the Mr. Hack meeting Thursday, September 29th